the moment our fellow geeks, dweebs, nerds, and other unfortunates have been fervently waiting for has finally arrived. It's time for TMI, Confessionals of the Nerd Kind. And now, your hosts, Jeff Nerf Herder Chandler, Jim Kaiju Baker, and Mike Mjolnir Evans. And now, let's get on with the show. Here is TMI.
Let's go.
Gentlemen,
Popped up on Goofballs this week.
hello. This is our first post-endgame show.
Oh my gosh.
I'm still exhausted.
Oh, we're going to still talk about this. How can you not still talk about this movie?
I know. So it seems to me we really have a tough act to follow, but how can you follow Endgame? We're just going to continue on.
I think
Business as usual.
Marvel's very worried about that as well. How are we going to... As I mentioned last week, Sony's probably like, what the...
We brought up some questions last week about what's the deal with time travel? What's the deal with Captain America? How could this be possible?
Wait, spoilers. So yeah, let's go right down this road because this is actually one of the news items. So let's talk about this.
Let's get into news first.
News right out the front. So this thing is just a monster locomotive. It made another $500 million over the week. This has only been out for what? A week?
A week
and a half?
Yeah.
We are now closing in on $2 billion, and it's already surpassed. I think it's now in the top 5 all time.
Trying to reach Avatar.
James Cameron is now crying. He's like, I was in the Avatar business. Well,
I'm still coming out with avatars. You wait and see.
6, 7, 8, and 9. People are going to get sick of these superheroes. Do you think people said that back in like the 50s when every movie was a Western? At some point, people got to get sick of these movies. We just keep making them.
No, but people did kind of get sick of Westerns. Nobody wants Westerns.
I guess. I don't know. My grandpa used to watch them with my
Unless it's got Clint Eastwood in it. I don't want to watch a Western.
There you go. I enjoy it. Well, whatever. So, Endgame, spoiler embargo is lifted. The Russo brothers has said, that's it. All bets are off. Don't watch TV if you haven't seen this yet because they're going to really start getting into the meat and potatoes in the ads. They really kind of pussyfooted and just gave you a taste of what was going on with these characters. We went in not knowing anything, but they're going to start delving into the true storyline. So if you haven't seen this yet and you didn't listen to last week's episode, prepare to probably get spoiled during the week. And it wasn't from us, so don't blame us.
You've had a week. Come on.
Right, a whole week. I know people who've seen it 5 times. 5 times. What'd you do, quit your job? I just watched the movie full time now. So that's my Endgame news.
But wait, let's not get off of Endgame yet because I saw an article where the directors were talking about the specific time travel conundrum that we brought up last week.
Okay, all right.
In America.
And they're
addressing all these criticisms saying, oh, it can't be. In the rules that they themselves had set up earlier in the movie, how is Captain America sitting there when they said that when you go back in time and change stuff around, you're creating an alternate timeline? And if that's the case, how is he there in their timeline as an old man?
So what was their answer? Because I'm very curious because one of my family members, Ethan, who...
It was very similar to his...
Ethan called it, man.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
So it said, who's to say that he is from that timeline? Obviously, if he went back and he had a life with Peggy Carter, he did create an alternate timeline, and he's
so
no longer.
All right. So
he's no longer in the
theory
main.
went out the window.
But that old Cap would have, at some point, had to get back to the main movie timeline that we know of.
Right. That exact moment.
Exactly. So he didn't exist in that timeline all this time. Like maybe we were theorizing last week because maybe he was the husband of Peggy Carter that was always in the background. It's not the case. They refuted that.
Bummer. I love that idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
How many days do you think that they sat in a room with like
And they're like, now they got to argue. Now they got to fight because they're like, dude, we worked this out 2 years ago.
That's what they're saying. He said, people seem to think that we're just throwing this up on screen. Like we worked this out over the past 3 years. We worked.
So was it the extra PIM particles that he grabbed?
They didn't say. They said that all would be revealed eventually, and we're thinking that it might be in that Falcon Winter Soldier series.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, man. Interesting. All right.
He did.
All right, are we off Endgame now?
Yeah.
Okay. We could keep going. I don't want to end on the bad news. That's all right. Sonic the Hedgehog. Anybody seen this trailer yet?
No.
Anybody care?
No.
No.
Okay. Well,
We're going to see Pikachu, right?
we are. Well, two of us are going to see
Yes,
Pikachu.
you are.
Oh, Mike's giddy. Well, so I mean, my kids are super stoked for this Pikachu movie. Pokemon's been around for a while, but we all know who Sonic the Hedgehog is, and he's got a new movie coming out, and the trailer dropped, and there was just this huge outcry of people screaming because they deviated so much from the original character design. Now he's got big clunky shoes, he's got a big head, he's very anime looking. So I guess I understand logistically and motion wise, you got to have him have a little more closer anatomy. People are screaming about this to the point where the studio has now said, we're going back and we're going to fix this. We're going to fix this character to look more like the character you love from the video games. What kind of budget's that?
I know. That's like making a new movie, starting from
Yeah, right. And did they think that this was going to happen?
They're just going to superimpose a hand-drawn Sonic the Hedgehog over the CGI.
It's going to be a hand puppet they just bring up. Because it was almost instantaneous where they turned around and they're like, all right, we heard your outcry and we're going to make this right. I just think they're going to sink a ton of money in this and it's still going to suck. And you have Jim Carrey as Dr. Robotnik. I haven't seen the trailer, so I can't really judge based on... He's kind of gone off the deep end the last couple of years, so...
Maybe we should ask the directors for $1 million and he'll give in to that too.
There you go. Willow. You remember this movie?
Yes.
86, yes. Ron Howard.
Val Kilmer.
Our friend Warwick Davis, he's been all over the place in the last couple of years in every Harry Potter movie. He started out as a little kid as an Ewok in Return of the Jedi.
Probably very disgruntled that Peter Dinklage is stealing all his thunder these days.
Maybe.
Like, I could have played Tyrion.
There you go. It looks like there's a TV show in development for Disney Plus with Warwick Davis set to replay his role. Whether or not we're going to get a fat Val Kilmer, Mad Mardigan, I have no idea. But John Kasdan, who is Lawrence Kasdan's son, has supposedly written a script and Ron Howard's attached. So...
You know what I would love now that Thor is popularizing the beer gut? Maybe we could have a fat Batman movie with Val Kilmer.
The dad bod.
I would love that.
We can't even bring Kevin Smith in because he's like skinny as a rail now.
Just let out that Batman suit a little bit around the girth. The utility belt goes up a couple of inches, and that's about it.
Robin, get me a beer. Peter Mayhew played Chewbacca for the last 40 plus years of our lives, passed away.
We don't have to turn it into a sad note. An acknowledgement of his great performance as Chewbacca.
No, absolutely. He was beloved. I guess it wasn't a shock, but it's still sad. We got these original cast members. I mean, they're getting up there in age. He was 74. I think the youngest out of all of them is Mark Hamill, and he's 67. James Earl Jones is 88 years old.
Ooh.
Yeah. You got Harrison Ford, 76. Frank Oz, George Lucas, Anthony Daniels, and the Emperor, Ian McDermott, they're all like 73, 74. Billy D. Williams is 82. I didn't even crunch the numbers on that. 82 years old.
He's probably not going to get out of the seat of the Millennium Falcon.
No.
There'll be no running around.
No, because he's stuck in the seat of the Millennium Falcon.
So I just wanted to acknowledge Peter Mayhew. I've met him a couple times and his lovely wife, Angie, over the years. And, condolences.
He trademarked that wonderful like knock-kneed Chewbacca run, and he brought something to that role where you could kind of tell when it was a different guy in the suit. It was. Well,
I think the kid who has replaced him, Juna, I'm gonna butcher his last name. He's done a very good job, I think, of stepping into those shoes.
And it was always the eyes. Chewbacca's eyes were the thing that really popped, and those were Peter's. It wasn't Chewbacca's. It was Peter's eyes, and he did a lot of acting with those eyes. Did you ever see like the raw footage before they put in the sound effects? Because he would speak dialogue because people would answer him, especially Han Solo.
So there's a seat, he's up there fixing the Falcon, and Han comes along. He's like, "Hey, where the hell have you been?" In his British accent, and it's pretty funny to watch, knowing that later it would just be edited out. But,
right. Oi!
And that's my news.
So this week we are covering the Ultraman series from Netflix.
Ultraman.
Now, this is an anime series, 13 episodes, only 20, 25 minutes each, so it hit our
pretty
sweet
short.
spot. Now, this is, of course, based on the original 1966 Ultraman Japanese TV series.
Yeah, it only ran 1 year, 66
It only
to
ran 1 year.
67.
Yeah.
But they've got so many of these types of shows from the 60s onwards in Japan. They have Ultra Q. No, that's the only one I know.
They have two at least.
Well,
They have at least two.
I think they've rebooted this a couple times over the years.
I think there's another one called Ultra 7, if I'm not
So how is this? I mean, I'm completely I know of him. I recognize him the minute you see him. But I had no idea. I guess I was unfamiliar with the storyline because I had no clue that it was a human inside the suit.
So I was looking online to see, was this ever broadcast in the U.S.? And it was. It was syndicated, and it ran in reruns right up until the mid-'80s, but I've never seen it.
No.
The live-action show.
I mean, but we know of him. We know what he looks like.
Definitely,
And, of course, they every episode you saw the original Ultraman because obviously this is kind of a heritage version. We got a passing of the torch.
Yeah, it's kind of like the last Halloween movie where they're ignoring everything else that's gone in between the original series and now. So anything that's taken place in between 1966 and 2019 is being ignored by this Ultraman series.
I did see that Jeff Nimoy's name was attached as a director.
Relation of Leonard?
I believe that is his son. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. But the original was a live action monsters in suit, man in suit monster, like really the precursor to Power Rangers.
The Power Rangers, yeah.
Right.
And of course it was inspired by Godzilla and the Toho films at that time. So they figured if these are so popular with kids, let's do a weekly TV show.
Yeah, why not?
It was a
Monster
hit out
of
of
the
the
week,
park.
man.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess it wasn't that popular since it only lasted one season.
Yeah, it took them 40 years to make another one.
Right.
And now the reason that we know of it, I think, is because of kids in the 70s. You know, you look at famous monsters, you look at magazines like this, and if you were any way, shape, or form a Godzilla fan, you would kind of gravitate towards any stories with other giant monsters. And I think
because he could grow big.
Yeah.
So now you're fighting the big Godzilla-sized monsters, and that is one thing I will say, which did not happen in this series.
No.
And I was waiting for it.
I know.
It seemed like more like an Iron Man kind of inspired.
There's a lot of Iron Man going on with
Yeah.
it. Right from the hero landings to the interior helmet shots.
Yep.
I mean, it really starts out with the original Ultraman.
Shin Hayata.
And there's way too many S names going on in this show. There's, we'll get into whether or not we watched it in dubbing or if you watch the subtitles. But you got Shin was the original, the dad. He was the original Ultraman.
Now, apparently, just as a really quick recap of what the 1966 show was about, featuring Shin, Ultraman is supposed to be an alien from the world of light, and he fuses with Shin Hayata, which gives Shin the power of Ultraman. And Shin becomes a member of the SSSP, which stands for Science Special Search Party.
Why did the Japanese think that if you just put science in front of something that is cool? Because I feel like Gatchaman or Battle of the Planets, they were also like some science ninja force or whatever.
Yeah, it was something to that.
Right. Well, just put science in front of it. Sounds cool.
And at the end of the series, it closed out with Ultraman returning to the world of light, and he takes his powers from Shin and all the memories of being Ultraman from Shin. So that's kind of where this series picks up. Years, decades later.
But he's an old man now.
He's an old man.
And there's an Ultraman museum. So he was around long enough one season for them to make a museum to him.
So is he part of the board of the museum or something? Because he's
so he has no memory of being Ultraman, but he's all about Ultraman.
Yeah, but he sort of knows he was Ultraman, right?
I guess he was. I was very confused on some of this stuff. again, like I said, the multiple Shin names, because his son's name is Shinjiro.
Shinjiro.
And then you also later have another character named Senji.
CG.
Which is how they rendered him in CG.
What was the one guy with the sock? What was his name?
He was Ito.
Oh, the Google-eyed poopy head guy?
Yeah, it was like a giant fossilized turd.
It was a Jurassic
with
dude.
an eye. You know, and every time I saw him, I felt like he should say,
That would have been better, because I'll tell you, his emoting and delivery horrible.
Now, when you first saw him, it was very bizarre because he was doing a lot of that slow down with his speech and then speed up again, and it was like almost like a nightmare listening to him talk, because Shinjiro is waking up in the hospital bed, and this giant turd is sitting by his side wearing a suit.
By the way, he had a nice suit on.
With gloves, because he didn't want to leave
streaks. You don't want to leave poopy marks.
So the first time you see him is very effective, I think. But then as you get used to him, you're thinking, oh, he's just a big turd. That's all.
He's just a big turd. He was kind of cool to look at, but yeah, his motivation was, I don't know. And we can talk about the animation a little bit, because it's really, I mean, I get into it more than you guys do. I don't know if you enjoyed this or not enjoyed this, but it was a mishmash of styles. It was.
You know what, Joe? Bring us through this, because I was like, "What's going on here?" And I'm like,
It's tough to. It's tough because it's, I mean, we go back to Jack and the Beanstalk, where each one of those characters had like their own kind of look and feel, and it was kind of the same way here. Everything is CG. Everything is 3D rendered. But you have your main human characters that are almost rendered in a 2D cell hand-drawn style. But then all of a sudden he's fighting a monster that's completely CG. It's a weird mix. It's a weird look. And sometimes they don't even feel like they're occupying the same space. And obviously when he's in the Ultraman costume, it is just straight up CG. I will say the fight sequences were very well done, to the point where I'm thinking that they had to do some kind of motion capture.
Yeah, I think just the movement, even in the non-fight sequences, when a human character is walking, it seems so realistic that I think it was. A lot of it was motion capture.
Yeah, some of them had weight, but then there was other times where it didn't. It was kind of a weird mix-up of these styles.
But how do you do that? Do you do motion capture and then animation over top of it?
Yeah, you would probably create like a wireframe of the body. You'd build a 3D model, and then you take what you call a skin, and you could, render it in whatever style, because, they had lighting, they had 3D lighting and whatever going on. Yeah, there was one monster that he fought, all the textures of the rough skin, the very Godzilla-looking thing, against these almost anime cartoon humans, which are very clean and didn't have a lot of detail to them, especially Rena. Rena seemed to be rendered almost completely hand-drawn.
Yeah, she's total anime.
Her and any other woman that speaks, my wife pointed out to me, why do they have to have each of these women sound like they're 5 years old?
Yeah, well, so again, we'll get into this later, but that's true though. And that's, I mean, the dialogue itself was completely dumbed down. It was,
I don't know.
Some of it was just asinine.
It is, but let's talk about the story first, then let's get into the dialogue. Right, I really want to point out some specifics of that dialogue, but let's give the story as the background. Shin Hayata, who in the beginning, he is a member of this museum for Ultraman that's and the SSSP. Unbeknownst to him, the SSSP is still operating out of this museum.
In the basement.
In the basement, yes.
That's also where Pee-wee's bike is, by the way.
Now, Shinjiro, being Shin's son, has been passed down the power of Ultraman, which is kind of... I didn't really get that.
No, because you see, he's a little kid in the first, and he falls off the railing. He's okay. Like he carries him away. And it's like the kid just like broke his neck.
It's like, shake it off, kid. Just shake it off.
That's exactly what his dad said. Yeah, and you're like, what is going on? There's a lot of questions going into this.
So if Shin was Ultraman and Ultraman left him, apparently he still has some of the power, but just doesn't remember.
But it also was implied that he had something special to begin with, and that's why Ultraman chose him, was a bit of my take on it. Yeah, but for whatever reason, Ultraman is now left, and we just have this museum to to him, and the kids come and they oogle the giant Ultraman statue.
And Shinjiro, as he gets older into a teenager, he's got these Spidey level powers. Not that he's jumping around and climbing on walls, but he has the proportionate strength, I would say, of like a Spider-Man type hero, right?
Yeah, and he's got a little bit of an intuitive, there's something wrong going on here, kind of a Spidey sense.
So they set up pretty early on that the power doesn't really come from the suit, but it's inherent to Shinjiro. The suit is just like an added bonus to his abilities. So the SSSP, I'm going to have trouble with that this whole episode.
Yeah, just say that the Science Patrol or whatever you want to.
SIP.
Yeah.
So early on, when Shinjiro falls off of that railing, they kind of catch on that
something's not right with this kid,
on, right? Yeah.
Like, wait a minute.
So they really foster these powers, the SSSP, because they want to come into full operation again. They want to come out of the shadows, and they want Ultraman. So
what have they been doing in the shadows all this time?
Yeah, who knows? They're just been sitting there
watching. Except for the fact that we
world.
do have aliens on the planet that are in hiding, but every time you turn around, there's an alien. It's like they're not doing a really good job of hiding themselves.
So they have a suit ready to go, just waiting for the next Ultraman.
In his size.
Just there, yeah.
So the first few episodes is like Shinjiro in training as Ultraman.
Yeah.
And there's this one character called Mr. Moriboshi. Something's lacking in translation here. When you're watching this, I did not watch the dubbed version. I watched the subtitled version. And a lot of the times, I know the Japanese are capable of making good movies. You know, just look at Seven Samurai or Yojimbo or even the early Godzilla movies. I know that they can make
movies from 60 years ago.
Yeah, exactly.
You're not giving me anything.
They used to be good at making movies.
But when you're watching this really stilted, almost amateurish dialogue, you're thinking, okay, there's got to be something lost in translation here. They cannot be really saying this in Japanese.
Yeah.
Because especially this Moriboshi, he's just...
he's straight up penis. He's a dick.
But the things that he says, like there's one line that he actually says, they're talking about Shinjiro, and really this heavy line comes out. It's closing out a scene, and he says, "I doubt very much I'm going to get along with this kid." Like it's telegraphing.
I get it. They're going to have a contempt.
It's Captain Obvious. This guy is pretty much Captain Obvious.
Maybe that's what Moriboshi actually translates into.
Captain Obvious.
Ay.
And another aspect of the translation not really coming through that well is what's the name of the big bad? Bemular? He's in this.
Bemular. Yeah, it seems like everybody had like multiple names because then they started calling each other Chief and Ace and all this other stuff, and they're like, who's he talking to? Like sometimes they call Shinjiro, and then sometimes they call him Shinji. Or but I think the bad guy, the one that the old man fights at the beginning in the stadium.
Yeah.
Bemular.
And he kind of looks like Ultron with the way that his suit is designed.
Yeah, the stadium fight was pretty impressive.
It was. All the fights are pretty impressive.
Yeah, but he puts his fist straight through the guy, like comes out his back, and how you live through that? Not once, but twice that happened in the show, and both characters lived. Do you know how human anatomy works? Very
early on, all the action in this series stems from a plane explosion. So they have this plane explosion on videotape, and they're watching it in the office of the SSSP. The reason that they're interested in this particular tragedy is that Bemular appears to have caused the explosion. You see the plane explode in the footage, and in the smoke you see this floating figure right in the middle of it, and it is Bemular, this Ultron-looking guy in a suit or a robot. You don't know what he is.
He was cool looking.
He is cool looking. Moriboshi, whoever's looking at this footage, start to refer to Bemular as, look, this guy caused the explosion. This guy?
This guy.
This is how you refer to this Bemular?
This guy. That guy right there.
The father would look at me and say, "Oh no, inawa shiyo," which means, this guy, this is not my kind of guy.
And they often say this guy throughout the show. Moriboshi's calling aliens the scumbag aliens. So all aliens are scumbags. So it's a very weird translation.
Yeah. There's some weird stuff going on with this. And that whole plot storyline, like you see that right up front, the whole plane exploding, the video, and you see Bemular. But then it doesn't really come around. You don't even meet Seiji or whatever is a CG until like the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th episode.
And he looks exactly like That Rena, the pop singer.
So
right?
the pop singers, yeah.
Who refers to herself as I'm a pop idol. And I'm sorry to paraphrase Game of Thrones. If you have to say you're a pop idol, then you're not a pop idol. All right.
I'm the mother of dragons. Yeah, fine. She made no sense. There was no reason to have this character in this show whatsoever.
I know, and she's walking the streets. It's like Britney Spears walking the streets
I know.
and waiting
And the
in a
guy
dark alley to be picked up. And apparently she never changes her clothes either.
No, she does wear the same outfit. Yeah, like a little 5-year-old Japanese schoolgirl. She loves Ultraman, but secretly hates Ultraman because she blames him for the death of her mom, but she still loves him. Like, that's just a weird,
Yeah, that changed from episode to episode.
Right.
It's like picking emotion.
And she was trying to get into Senji's pants, or she wanted to get into his suit, and she kind of knew that he was Ultraman, but
by the end of this, we really have 3 Ultramen.
Which surprised me, because your Moriboshi shows up in a full-on suit. So why not just make him Ultraman?
Yeah,
why did you have to get this kid? Because he's a badass. He's got the samurai sword. And here's the thing, Ultraman kills? Like that, they're sending him out to kill these aliens. He's chopping heads off and splitting them in half. This happened in the kid show?
Yeah, but he had a moral compass. He didn't want to do it.
But by the end,
he still did it.
At the end, it was him trying to defeat his moral compass. And at the end, he does defeat it. He's like, okay, I'm going to kill these aliens.
I just give in. Yeah. And then he becomes really cool. CG, I thought, was a much more compelling and interesting character. And he should have been the only Ultraman. Because he had motivations. You know, he survived the plane crash, which nobody knew about.
But he was blackmailing people in order to fund his suit.
Yeah, he was not a good kid in any way, shape, or and he was like about 12. I think they said 14, give or take.
Yeah, give or take.
He was 4, maybe like 16. He was 4 when the plane crashed. I don't know. And then we had this Sawyer Josh Holloway ripoff American character.
Yeah, I thought he was more like Keith Urban. I was like,
Keith, I'll take that, Keith Urban. I went with the Lost reference. And then we have a Star Cluster Council. That's another. We got, I don't know.
Who is the guy with the zebra stripes? Who is that guy?
He was cool looking. I think he's from the original show, too. I think that there's kind of a few callbacks to some of the aliens and the way they looked in the original series. But
now he during that fight scene, he comes into one of the stadium performances of Reina, the pop idol, and the crowd thinks it's part of the show when the 2 Ultramen show up. And even after the guy kills a security guard, nobody leaves. The crowd just stays there.
Yeah,
doesn't he lock the doors or something?
Yeah, after he kills them. Like, he gives them ample time to get out, and nobody does. And then he locks the doors. They can't even get a shot into this guy, this zebra guy.
And I felt like from those early episodes, I'm like, this Ultraman, like, his full power is just to jump really high. Like, he really didn't have anything to bring to the table.
Yeah, so let's talk about the Iron Man comparisons here.
Yeah.
As you said, Jeff, when Shinjiro's in the Ultraman suit, you see a point of view exactly like Tony Stark's point of view.
Yeah,
in all those Iron Man Avengers movies.
With the graphics wrapping around him.
Jarvis.
Yep.
No Jarvis, yeah. No, just Moriboshi telling him he's an idiot and a loser. This guy
is not my kind of guy. But he had those 2 Bessium lights.
The blades on his forearms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you put them together, it was like the classic Ultraman pose, and that was like the ultimate laser that Ultraman uses to decimate his villains. But that was a one-off. That once he does that, I think the suit powers down. So you got
because there's like this ability where he taps into like the uncharted power level, but he only has 3 minutes once he taps into it. A couple times they're like, all right, I can't believe you just did that. Yeah, you got 3 minutes. Get your ass out of there. I will say the last 3 episodes really stepped up the game. But it takes a lot to get there. There's one whole episode where there is no Ultraman. There's no Ultraman in the episode 6. Skip it. There's no Ultraman whatsoever. And the design is nice, but like you said, it's straight up Iron Man. You know, the old costume's very clean, very simple. But yeah, you got 3 of them. Senji gets his butt handed to him. But again, fist right through the chest cavity. I'll be back. So
don't worry about me. I'm going to shake it off.
Yeah, shake it off. That's basically it.
Just get me to the SSSSP, and then I'll be right as rain.
I'll be good.
All these new Godzilla movies that have come out in the past 10 years, they all kind of suffer from that kind of lame dialogue. It's like a facsimile of American movies, but like a bad facsimile written by a 10 or 12-year-old Japanese child.
Right.
But maybe is it a cultural thing? Or like
That's
maybe
what I'm
Japanese
wondering.
realize-
Do they think we talk like that, or do they think that that's how they have to talk to us? Which is a bigger question.
Now, I apologize to our Japanese listeners because I know we have them. Please don't let us offend you.
Well, then let
No, but comment.
No, yeah, let us know. I mean, is this prevalent in all? Are we just watching this and being overly sensitive,
Or do you get this feeling as well as a Japanese viewer?
when we dialogue? Yeah, exactly. Translate. They're still upset about The Last Samurai with Tom Cruise. Their sentiments exactly.
So what kind of buckets would we give Ultraman?
I'll go 3. It was enjoyable. It took me a lot to get, even though, like you said, the episodes are only 23 minutes and they go right from one into the other. You don't get any credit opening. Boom. The last scene is the very first scene you see in the next episode. So it does flow. But again, the character development, that Rena, made no sense whatsoever. She was cute to look at, and that was it.
It's a tough one for me. I was behind on my homework, so I binge watched 10 episodes, and I would not recommend that.
Well, like I said, those last 3 episodes really stepped up the game.
Right. When you're in 10, you're like, oh, when is this going to end? So if you're going to watch it, I would try to watch them, 1, 2 at a time. I'd go 2.5 to 3, maybe.
I would stick with 3. The fight scenes were very good.
Like I said, they were very well choreographed. There was
but similar.
Yes. Yeah, there's not much you can do, until he grows big. And then they just do the same fight sequences over a building. That's all. It's worth checking out if you're into that kind of stuff.
If you're into that kind of stuff, yeah. Very half-hearted recommendation.
I know, right?
Yeah.
They'll show up on the Netflix.
So now, before we get into our classic feature, and classic it is, you may have heard this ad play at the top of our Endgame episode, but we've got a new podcast app that you can listen to our show over, and we heartily recommend that you use it, because not only is it charitable, but if you don't want to go that route, you can get points on your own. So we're going to break it down for you right here. Take a listen. This is Podcoin. Hey there, Nerdkinders. Yes, we just coined that phrase for all our loyal listeners, so wear it proudly. Did you know that you can actually get paid just for listening to this podcast?
It's true.
Wait, is this the Podcoin app we were talking about last episode?
Yeah, it's a free app that actually pays you to listen to podcasts.
I've actually been using it for a while now. So when can I expect my big paycheck to roll in?
Slow down there, Colonel Steve Austin. You listen to podcasts and earn Podcoin points while you listen. Then you turn those points in for gift cards at places like Amazon or Starbucks.
Hi, Starbucks blonde vanilla bean cocoa milk latte.
Or
there are multiple causes available to donate your points to. But since it's no secret that we here at TMI rely heavily on our local library systems to feed our classic movie feature, we thought it would be noble to get you, our listeners, to donate to the Books for Poor Kids charity.
All right. I like it. A podcast with a cause.
so rebellious.
Here's all you need to do. Step 1, download the Podcoin app right now on your phone.
I'm assuming it's available for iPhone and Android?
Yes. Step 2, use our code TMI NERDKIND. That's TMI NERDKIND to get 300 Podcoin just for signing up. Step 3, subscribe and listen to TMI every Wednesday or any of your favorite podcasts. We don't mind, as long as you earn points. Don't forget to use our unique code, TMI NERDKIND. The more you listen, the more you earn.
Funny, I never thought of Jeff as a latte kind of guy.
Wah, wah, wah.
There was something in that burning house when fearless Fred arrived. Without a moment's hesitation, into the flames he dived. He reappeared, the crowd all cheered, the object in his hand.
This is what I saved.
He said,
It's Toddy, the chocolate drink that's just grand. Yes, Toddy does taste grand. Toddy, the delicious chocolate drink in a can. Ice cold or steaming hot, delicious Toddy hits the spot with everybody. During intermission, see how much better that popcorn or those hot dogs taste with Toddy. On sale at our snack bar. Delicious.
So our classic feature this week, we didn't announce it last week. We only tentatively put out Ultraman, is the Iron Giant from 1999. A precursor to Groot, because it has Vin Diesel doing the title character.
And neither one of you gentlemen had seen this movie.
No.
I was blown away by.
Now, Jeff, when did you first see this? Is this a family favorite of yours?
This is a family favorite. As a matter of fact, I tore apart my house trying to look for I must have let my sister borrow it so she could watch it with the kids because I can't find it. And yeah, my wife was all excited that we were going to watch this again, and then we never did. But I've seen this movie so many times I can talk it. Right after it came out on DVD, I remember buying it for a buddy's son. It was his birthday. He was probably like 5 or 6 years old. And rewatching it numerously. I think it's brilliant. It's absolutely beautiful. This is one of Brad Bird's, if not, I think this is his directorial debut. So take us through this, Jim, because I'm curious to see what you guys thought.
Well, let's get into some of the history first. It's got a very storied past, does this movie, and I found it fascinating. It's based on the novel The Iron Man, 1968. By Ted Hughes.
Yep.
Same last name as the.
I was going to say, Hogarth.
Hogarth Hughes, the kid in this movie.
Yep, Hogarth. Who named your kid Hogarth?
Ted Hughes, I assume, is English. It was released overseas as The Iron Man, but the novel was released here as The Iron Giant. Maybe not to confuse.
They didn't want to confuse it with the Marvel character.
And here's where it gets interesting. In 1994. Pete Townsend of The Who optioned the rights for this.
I had no clue about this. This is very interesting to me.
Yeah, I have the CD.
Yeah, and he made a musical of it called The Iron Man, which was, and a couple of the tracks were played on by the other members of The Who at the time, John Entwistle and Roger Daltrey. Yeah, Pete Townsend, Mr. Congeniality of rock and roll, you know.
Smile, you buggers! Pretend it's Christmas.
The Grump himself, he retained producer's credit just because of his involvement of the Iron Man the musical. And I read a quote of his. They asked him his opinion of it, and he said, "Well, I didn't care. I just got paid." That was.
Oh, really? See, now I don't even want to mention it. I don't even want to bring his name up again.
But no, he did say in a later interview that he very much enjoyed the film. So
of course he did, because he's still getting residual checks.
Of course he is. Yeah.
Oh, I love that movie.
But it wasn't a hit upon release.
It was a bomb.
It was a bomb of epic proportions, due largely to the fact that Warner Brothers didn't know what they had in their hands.
Yeah.
Now, they had done, I guess their previous animated film just flopped completely at the box office. So they were expecting this to do the same. They didn't prepare for any kind of merchandising tie-ins whatsoever. Burger King actually, they were ready to go with a Burger King tie-in, but that fell through. And then the early reviews came out, and Warner Brothers figured, we didn't do anything with this, and it's kind of too late now. Released without much promotion.
No.
And it died a death at the box office.
Yeah, I think it opened the same weekend as The Sixth Sense, which probably didn't help either.
No.
And it's a period piece. You know, the whole thing takes place in 1957. Is that a turnoff?
And actually, Warner Brothers early on wanted a sidekick dog character for the kid to make it more palatable. They wanted it set in the present day and not in the 50s.
There you go.
And they wanted a hip hop soundtrack.
Yeah, no. I can't. It would have been a completely different movie.
It would have been. It would have been completely different.
Yeah.
So what we have here, we have a kid, 9 years old, only child, no father in the picture. He lives with his mother, who's a waitress.
Yeah, you get. I think you get like one sense that the dad was a fighter pilot. There was one little scene, a picture on a mantle.
So we're in 1957, Cold War abounding all around.
Sputnik had just been launched, first satellite in space. So Russian paranoia was at a full-time high.
Atomic paranoia as well, because there's the duck and cover.
The duck and cover, yeah.
It was fantastic.
In the beginning of the movie, very much like the opening of John Carpenter's The Thing, you see something hurtling towards Earth, and it is the Iron Giant. And the beauty of it is you never know where he's from. You don't know what purpose he was created for or how he ends up on Earth. You just don't know.
That's so funny, because I actually added that into my notes, that is one of... I love the fact that you really don't know his true intent. Was he, did he land there on purpose? Did he crash land? Was he part of like an invasion force, like a pre-invasion going to check it? Like, you never know any of that stuff. I guess there was a scene that's on the special edition version that kind of lays that out, but we'll get
really?
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad I didn't see the special edition version. I just saw the.
No, neither have I. I just read about it, but I'm glad that I didn't see it.
So the giant, when he lands, he's got a dent in his head. His purpose really is to be a war machine because he is just a living weapon. He's an embodiment of war. But because of this bump on his head, he kind of forgets what he is, and he's a blank slate. It's like having amnesia. So Hogarth finds him in the woods one night when he's alone in his house because his mother is working late. He goes outside.
He tends to be alone a lot.
Yeah. The giant has eaten his antenna because the giant eats metal. So he follows the giant out to a power station in the woods, and the giant has accidentally wrapped himself up in the cables of the power station and is being shocked. The kid turns off the main on-off switch, which is a complete Looney Tunes Acme on-off switch that he pulls to save the giant. The giant realizes this, and he's now indebted to Hogarth. Yeah. So he essentially becomes Hogarth's pet.
Yeah, it's a metal E.T.
But it's funny, it's Brad Bird. I read something where he addresses the comparisons to E.T., and Brad Bird's like, yeah, but E.T. doesn't really kick the Army's ass in that movie, does he?
No, he just eats.
So he's a little defensive, I think, about the E.T. comparison.
But it's a fair comparison. If you want to break it down to the very nuts and bolts of what this movie is. It's a buddy film.
It is.
It's a very heartwarming, and it's one of the first real CG main characters. I mean, everything else is hand-drawn animated. He is straight up CG.
And I was confused by that because it is very much a 2D cartoon, but the character of Iron Giant is rendered in CGI.
Yeah, and they went out of their way to kind of down-res him, add some kind of squiggly lines to make him look a little more hand-drawn so he doesn't, just what we just mentioned in Ultraman, which is this jarring styles mashing with each other. So they did a lot of work to try and kind of bring him back to look like the environment and the other characters he was.
Hogarth pretty early on realizes that if anybody else knows about the Iron Giant, that it's going to spell disaster because he knows that the government has no patience for such things, especially with the Sputnik paranoia going on. They're going to assume that he's a Russian agent of some kind.
And they're in the middle of nowhere. He's in like little upstate, like Rockwell, Maine. Yeah.
Roswell, could there be a connection?
Well, yeah, that's not too much. I got the more Rockwell, the picturesque, Norman Rockwell.
Right.
But yeah, Roswell fits as well.
So Hogarth befriends the beatnik Dean, I think his name is.
Dean, yeah. Voiced by Harry Connick Jr.
Yeah, and I didn't know until I'm like, who is that? Who is that?
Yeah, and that's the one thing I will say about this. I've gone on record on this show numerous times that I hate like stunt casting where you get these big name stars to star in an animated movie and they have no right to do a voice. And all I'm going to say is Brad Pitt, I'm talking to you. Every one of these voice actors is spot on in this. Jennifer Aniston, she was hot. She was coming off, Friends was 96 started?
Yeah. So she was, this was still in the midst of Friends. So she was still one of the biggest stars on the planet at that point.
Yeah, Harry Connick Jr., like, who would ever think that he would, outside of singing, that he would even be cast in a role like this?
I know, and him playing a beatnik and him being that zip-a-da-doo-dah daddy-o guy anyway,
Yeah.
Pops, did you pick up on this jive, man? What? Did you pick up on this jive, this crazy music here, man? Did you dig the rebop? What? The rebop, Dad, the rebop. He's a square. Oh, you take the brew on the side on the time, and you take this bottle right to be able to up at the bow. And if you want to, you take a drink, and all the time,
no, and it's so perfect, and and even like the secondary characters, the character after E. Emmett Smith, I think he played the one of the guys in the train when the train gets derailed because it hits Iron Giant.
Now he's the drill instructor from Full Metal Jacket, right? Is that the same guy?
Yes. I can't remember the actor's name who plays Mansley, but he's spot on. And Mansley's just
Christopher McDonald. He is a character actor.
Okay.
And let me talk about Mansley for a second, because I read that a lot of the animation was inspired by, like, Brad Bird and the team went back and looked at a lot of the animation styles around the time that the movie is set in. So they were looking at Chuck Jones. They were looking at the Disney stuff around the time. 101 Dalmatians was a big influence on this. And Mansley is directly taken from 101 Dalmatians. If you look at the dad in 101 Dalmatians.
With the nose and the whole...
The chin, it's a ringer for Mansley.
Yep, very cool.
So Mansley is the jerk. He is the heavy of this movie. And he's the government agent that wants to take down the giant. And he's trying to convince the government that the giant exists. As this is going on, I'm about to call him Hogwarts. Hogarth is teaching the giant, because at one point they're really hiding out in the woods. And at one point they see a stag. And the giant goes down to touch the stag. The stag sniffs the giant's finger and runs away and immediately gets shot by hunters. Yeah. And the giant is very confused and upset by this. And Hogarth kind of explains death in a very beautiful way, saying that, death is not a bad thing. Killing is a bad thing.
Yeah.
Guns are a bad thing. You are not a gun. And that's a sentiment that is repeated over and over again.
It's bad to kill. Guns kill. And you don't have to be a gun. You are what you choose to be. You choose.
Yeah. I got goosebumps just now. You talking about that?
But yeah, it's in a kids movie. It's really heavy-handed stuff. It's trying to explain death, really, and it's not something that's not really done. Even in The Lion King, it's just used as a plot device to move Simba forward.
No, and I did not know, but Bird was inspired by the death of his sister, who was shot by her husband. And his pitch for this movie was, what if a gun had a soul and didn't want to be a gun? And that's the premise of The Iron Giant.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. And it's very sobering, because you're like, yeah, because you're right. It's very heartfelt, this movie. The relationship between Hogarth and the giant it's very emotional. And I will say, the kid who played Hogarth, I don't know what he's done since, Eli Marienthal, sells this, because he is the main character.
Yeah.
You have to you're seeing everything through his eyes, the wonder of this giant robot. And at the same time, as adults, you completely understand where Mansley's coming from, which is, we don't know what the hell this thing is. We don't know what it's here for. Kill it. We'll worry about that later. I mean, that's the paranoia of what's going on. So and the story itself is very simple, but the relationships that are established, and especially when he becomes friends with Dean, and then Dean lets the giant hide out, because he's an artist and he works with scrap metal. So the giant can hide out in the scrap metal yard. He can eat all the stuff he wants, and nobody will be the wiser. And there's a great scene where they're playing. Dean's making his art, and the Iron Giant has Hogarth in a beat up car, and he's flying around like an amusement park ride, giving him, and then they start playing Guns and Robbers or whatever, and he wants him to be the bad guy. And that's where all of a sudden you realize that this thing's got more going on behind than we realize. And there's a lot
the
of
giant wants to be Superman. He doesn't want to be.
He doesn't want to be. No, Tomo.
I Superman. Yeah.
Yeah. So
which was funny, because when I got this from the library, and patronize your local library, everybody. We have to say that every week. When I got this from the library, I was looking at the DVD case, and in the back, I was just looking to see what year it was made, how long it is, who's in it, and I was just looking at the credits on the back, and it said Superman, property of Warner Brothers. I'm like, what? Superman's in this? And so, that can't be right. So sure enough, he is heavily referenced.
He's mentioned numerous times. As a matter of fact, because he shows him his Superman collection, his comics, and I guess that's even true. That issue he pulls out is from 1954. And even the robot design. If you go back to those original Max Fleischer Superman cartoons from the 50s, that's kind of how robots were built and designed, in the way they looked in those 50s sci-fi magazines and Popular Mechanics. Even Sky Captain and the World of Tomorrow, which was another, that was a much more recent movie, but it was made to look like it was made in the 50s. And that's kind of that big top heavy robot with the little thin legs. So I don't know. I absolutely love this movie, and I'm assuming you liked it.
Yeah, I did as well. I did as well. I really enjoyed it.
I adored it. There you go. And it's just so many quotable quotes in this movie.
It is, yeah.
It just, welcome to downtown Coolsville. Population, us. It just so many nice little moments in this. And like I said, the voice actors really take this to the next level.
The bump on the head of the giant gives him amnesia. So Hogarth is able to instill all these values in him in a very short period of time. That he's not a gun, that he can be whatever he wants to be, that he has a soul, because he is a good thing.
I don't know. You're made of metal, but you have feelings, and you think about things, and that means you have a soul. And souls don't die.
So once the army comes in and tries to destroy the giant and levels their tanks and guns at him, something clicks in the giant's head, like a defense mechanism.
Yep.
So then it forgets Hogarth and it becomes the weapon that it was designed to be. It takes out a few tanks, and Mansley ends up launching a nuclear missile off of a ship, off a battleship.
And then realizes pretty quickly that was stupid. Oh, that's the one thing we didn't talk about, the general, who is voiced by the dad from Frasier.
Yeah, Frasier.
John Mahoney. And he's great. He's like, where's the robot, Mansley? He says, we can't survive this. Duck and cover?
So the robot, the very last minute, realizes Hogarth reminds him of who he really is, and he doesn't have to be what he doesn't want.
Yeah, the theme is you are what you choose to be.
Yeah.
And then that's said numerous times.
Yep. And the missile is trained on the robot, so the robot flies up into the atmosphere to meet the missile, so it doesn't come down on the town. And because Hogarth has told him that dying is not a bad thing, that killing is a bad thing, he sacrifices himself to save the town. But it turns out at the end that he doesn't really, because they find a little screw from the robot that they give to Hogarth.
They give it Hogarth. Yeah.
The army gives it to Hogarth because they realize that they've not done the right thing either. So they give the screw to Hogarth, and because the giant's parts are they're all sentient.
As he's in the barn, like his pieces kind of find their way back to him.
The pieces, whenever the Iron Giant comes apart, the pieces reassemble themselves. Yeah. So at one point, at the very end of the movie, Hogarth's screw, that one piece that he has left, starts to move. And he wants to get out the window. It's tapping against Hogarth's window. So he opens it and the screw is gone. So, and Hogarth knows that it's going back to wherever the giant is. And it turns out that his head is in Iceland. So the pieces are reconvening. So you get a setup for a sequel that sadly never happened.
No, I don't think we need it.
Yeah, according to Brad Bird in 2018, he said there will never be a sequel to The Iron Giant. And yeah,
he also
right.
he also said that he wouldn't make a sequel to Incredibles until he got a good script, and that didn't work out.
Hey, Incredibles 2 wasn't bad.
It's the same movie. They just put the mom in the lead. Come on.
So we got some buckets to give to this one. I would go I'd give it 4.5. I'm not going to quite go 5. I am going to give it 4.5. It is worthy of that.
I'd go 4 plus. 4 plus.
4 plus?
A solid 5 for me. Solid 5. This movie is flawless and perfect, and I'm glad they didn't change any of it. I was talking about that signature series, the DVD. I guess there's a dream sequence that kind of fills in who and what he is, and it depicts his race and the conflict that led him to crash land on Earth. And I'm really happy they did not include that.
Really?
I do love the idea that you really don't know, and it doesn't matter. That's like E.T. Was he on a science expedition? Was he, a kid that got left behind with his parents? You never know, nor do you care. The fact of the matter is that he came here and Hogarth fundamentally changed who and what he was.
So did it say in that added scene that he was like the precursor to an invasion, or
no? I didn't read any farther, to be honest with you, because I don't want it to soil.
Yeah.
Again, that's like you said, I love that idea that you don't really know what is in. Did he crash land here, or did he come here on purpose and bump his head when he landed? Did he have a bump before he came here, and that's why he crash landed?
And as we often complain on the show, why does everything have to have a reason? Why does everything have to be tied together? Yeah.
Yeah. You don't know any more than what the characters know. He's got amnesia. He doesn't know who he is or what his mission is. I think it's not necessary.
Yeah, and I'm surprised that it's taken us this long to cover this movie. So I'm glad that we did.
Yeah.
Finally. So there you have it.
So if you think this is like a kid's movie, it's not. There you go.
So this leads us this week to our confessional. Actually, the Iron Giant doesn't, but it's more of an Ultraman themed confessional this week.
Confessionals.
Because we had the option of watching Ultraman either dubbed or subtitled. And the confessional this week, in general, what do you prefer? If you're watching a foreign movie, and if you're given the option, would you rather watch it dubbed into English or subtitled the original audio? So what are our thoughts, gentlemen? Who wants to go?
I think generally I would prefer subtitled, unless it's an animated feature. To Jeff's point, I would rather have that dubbed.
Now, why would you say that? You want to concentrate more on the visuals rather than what reading?
Right, because it takes away from it. Like now I'm reading and now they're moving the animation and I don't really feel that I'm ever caught up on it.
I see.
Yeah, I agree with you. I absolutely agree with you. I'll use not Labyrinth. I will use Pan's Labyrinth as an example, which is I would never ever in a million years watch that movie dubbed. It's filmed in Spanish or whatever language it was, and I appreciate it, and I'll take the time and I'll read what was intended, but I do not want it dubbed. But animated wise, I would absolutely follow Mike.
You see, I kind of did run into that while watching Ultraman, that my attention was being taken by the subtitles, and I had to really look up to concentrate what was going on, because it really comes fast and furious in Ultraman, especially during the fight scenes when they're having dialogue. It takes you away from the fight when you're reading the stuff. But in general, and I don't think if I were to watch this again, which I won't, but I still would watch it subtitled, because I don't want that original intent to be diluted at all. Like, let's bring up The Rain. I think that might have been the only other subtitled film that we've covered so far. Rasmus. Yeah, you don't get Rasmus if you watched it dubbed. You don't get that intent. And often, dubbed actors are really kind of phoning it in. It's really a bad acting job in most cases when you're watching something dubbed.
Some guy out there who's making a living doing voiceovers is cursing you right now.
And
but it's true, especially in this one. They're boring and bland. No differentiation between the characters.
And I read that it was Josh Hutcherson that did the voice for the main character in Ultraman. And what is his name again? Shinjiro from The Hunger Games. So he was the main actor in the dubbed version.
I don't think I knew that.
But I think you're losing a lot of the actor's original fire and intent in the delivery of the lines as well when you're watching a dubbed version. So that's why I like the subtitles.
Yeah, kind of.
So there you have it. So let's talk about next week's episode.
Oh, yes. So we have a little bit of a surprise.
Yeah, we do. Surprise for us.
We're going to get a surprise.
Yeah. So Jeff and I decided, since we're going to have to watch this movie anyway, because I have to take my son, and Jeff's son is all into seeing this as well, Pikachu.
Detective Pikachu.
Detective Pikachu. We are going to be covering this next week. Mike,
I will not be covering it
to watch it.
Mike, will you actually be tuning in to listen to our review, Mike?
You know, I know that I would just give it one popcorn bucket out of the go. So
you can't walk into a movie thinking you're going to hate it.
So to give Mike a concession, we realized that this was not his cup of tea. That this guy is not Mike's kind of guy.
So what do you got for us, Mike?
So Mike is going to pick the classic. What does he got?
So with Infinity War still on my mind, the classic feature is The Big Lebowski.
Oh, I love it. And if there's a way that we can tie these two movies together, I'm going to be blown away.
Yeah, so I'm like, there's no way. But I'm like, that's where we're going with it.
I think fate sometimes drops that in our lap, so I think there will be a way that
it's happened more than once. It doesn't take, that 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon.
Yeah. Oh, I can't wait to watch this again.
Goes bowling. That's all we need.
Yeah, that's all we need.
I've never seen it.
You've never seen The Big Lebowski?
Nope. I can honestly say I've probably only seen it once in my life.
Jeff, you will be in for a treat as well, because this is the gift that keeps giving.
And I want to say that our listener, Jeff Gauss, actually brought this up and was asking for us to review this at one point. It was one of his top movies. It was one of when we were picking our top 5. So there you go, Goose.
So there you go. You can consider this a listener request as well.
There you go.
And happy Mother's Day, everybody out there that's a mom that happens to listen. Happy Mother's Day to you.
Yes, find a nice little spot somewhere, catch up on some episodes, and hide away from the kids.
Yeah. All right, so then next week, Detective Pikachu and The Big Lebowski. So join us. All right.
I'm in. Okay.
Oh, you take the brew on the side on the time, and you take this bottle right to be able to drop at the bow. And if you want to, you take a drink, and all able to be able to
This guy, this is not my kind of guy.